Good evening, all. Good evening again. Let's start with this. Welcome to this webinar. We are going to talk about how to effectively use social media in our personal lives. Before starting the webinar, let me introduce myself and then let us continue. So basically, I have more than 10 years of experience in the academia. And previously, I was a journalist on information and communication technologies, mostly new media related technologies. And during that phase, I worked for different companies all around the world. And my focus is technology and its application in the communication field. And the detail of that is new media and digital media, basically, or in general, emerging media. Today, we have all of these as our agenda. We're going to start with Social Dilemma documentary, and then we're going to focus on our purposes. And from time to time, we had this experience of binge usage, and we are going to talk about that, how to manage our time against basically binge usage. For that, we can use something called Pomodoro method. And we are going to also talk about information and media diet. If we look at the same information and media concepts and products and services as something we consume, like food items, then it may change our behavior and attitude towards them. And we are also going to talk about media literacy, which will help us in terms of general information and media diet, plus fact-checking issues. And we are going to, of course, talk about fact-checking, then how to remove unnecessary content when we are using social media. And then at the end, we are going to refer a little bit about the Childhood 2.0 documentary. So probably you have already heard this documentary. It is available online. If you search, you'll be able to watch this documentary. If you are subscribed to the Netflix, then you can easily watch from Netflix this documentary. It's about the experts and their experiences. Based on their experiences, basically they were sounding the alarm on the dangerous human impact of social networking. We're going to talk about the details, of course, what they were telling. And the issue is the documentary focuses on how those big social media companies, Facebook, Amazon, Google, and others, manipulate users by using algorithms, software that's basically recording the behavior of the users, individual users, and then encouraging addiction to their platforms. And how these platforms harvest personal data to target the users, individual users, with ads and some other different tricks. So the companies succeed because they capture our attention, and then they sell this attention to other companies or entities, let's say. If they bid the highest amount, they get our attention easily. The basic idea we need to keep in our mind is if we are not paying for the product or service, then we are actually the product. Let's look at the lessons from the documentary. All of the social media platforms are just for our entertainment. When we think about them like this, then we need to also understand the logic behind their business model. They need to keep us engaged on our screens. So the question in their minds is, how much of your life can we get you to give to us? And we assume always, as users, as end users, individuals, that if the content is available for free on the internet, then it is something good. But it is actually being paid, the price of the content is being paid for by the advertisers. They pay for our attention and make money from that. And the issue behind the business model of social media companies is it is the in our mindset we have this, they are selling our data. They are not selling our data directly, but they are actually using the data that they somehow get from us to produce models. And then these models actually are representations, online avatars of each individual user. And using that model, and let's keep in our minds that they are actually, with every minute, with every second we continue to use their platforms, they are actually making these models, perfecting these models, and eventually trying to represent us as we are, like a mirror image of us. And the competition among the social media companies is actually, it is about to have the best model that represent the individual user. So when we continue to listen these people throughout the Social Dilemma documentary, we learn that the social media companies, they watch, track, and measure everything we are doing when we are using those platforms. Even the image that we stop and look at, and how many seconds or milliseconds that we stopped and looked that image. They always measure, track, and watch every detail of every user behavior. And we are not alone, basically, with our friends. there's always this sneaky third person who's paying to manipulate us. And the technology is actually related to the psychology of the individual person. They employ people who are trying to understand the behavior patterns of the users. They are experts in psychology. And with this knowledge, they change the technology itself. And every time we look at the screen, we know that there is something waiting for us. And they basically, the social media companies basically modify our behavior by offering positive reinforcement. It is not the social media system services, platforms, they are not tools, but they are entities that they have their own goals and they pursue those goals relentlessly. For example, when someone tag uh, our photo or tag our name in a photo on Facebook, then basically when we receive that information, the company tries to engage us with the platform. And they always want us to continue um, flicking through the content and following the details of the stream, continuously updating the stream and checking what's new, what's interesting, etc. And they are basically programming our behavior. We probably already programmed to act this way, to check, to update the application and the social media stream that we are following. And when we see uh, similar uh, information or similar cues, responses from the system coming, like the typing information, small information, when someone is replying to our comment or replying us, then that is just to keep us engaged and not to lose us. And here's in this photo is a representation of the platform algorithm trying to keep the user that when he engages with another user, immediately informing the first user that the second one is currently engaged also, and she is writing, typing as she is writing. Please do not leave. By showing this typing word, keeps the first user engaged. And all of these companies, they employ these types of people. And according to the uh, growth hacking techniques methods, it's an entire field of study. They delve into human minds and their psychology for business. Of course, to manipulate as fast as possible, as much as possible, the users. We are talking about Facebook, and it's not the only company who's involving with these types of activities. Almost all of them, they have anthropologists, psychologists, sociologists in their companies involving with these types of research activities. And then even experts themselves who build all this technology, they get addicted to it. They try to change this, but they are unable to do so. Why? Because they are falling their own traps. And if they are capable experts, technology experts, they even write extra software to break their addiction to specific social media or web pages, websites, or services. And they know what's going on, but they are still susceptible. So here's the situation. We are we have a constant urge in our minds now to connect with other people, to engage with them. And the social media, it's an optimization method for us. And basically, we're getting that connection through social media. And with that, the dopamine in our brain gives us this feeling of happiness. But it's not sitting there. It's just temporary, and that's actually what's causing the addiction itself. So social media is actually a kind of a drug, technological drug, we can say. When we check the details of the behaviors of different types of people and users, we see that actually the psychology of the human beings, uh, humans didn't used to get these types of social approval from tens of thousands of people every 5 minutes. Think about the like button, and especially the teenagers. They when they receive these types of likes, then they affect their behavior or psychology is immediately affected. These types of things, and the curation of the social media messages or these systems actually um, giving everybody this perceived sense of perfection. We are trying to perfect our image online, and we are not interested. We are not basically interested in the professional, career-related side of the issue. We are also interested in the social side of the issue, especially the younger the user gets, the more this effect becomes apparent. And it's a vicious cycle we are unable to get out of. So that's something problematic in terms of the sense of self worth and identity of especially the kids and children. We are talking about Generation Z, those who were born after 1996. And these children, let's say, they have been the worst affected by the use of internet and social media. And they get their first uh, phones, mobile phones or smartphones while they were in middle school. But according to the statistics and research, they are the more anxious, more fragile, more depressed generation compared to the earlier generations. So, after all of this, what we can say about the social media? We need to start with the purpose of ourselves. What's our purpose? What's my purpose of social media usage? And it is, of course, related to my purpose in life and who am I question. Who am I? And when we look at the details of different types of uses of social media, we see that sharing, learning, interacting, and marketing are the four main uses. But generally, users follow a pattern, and it's mostly related to the fun versus meaning. And the usage reason, the purpose, mostly tend to be the fun related usage in terms of social media. But if you are educated, if you know something about media literacy, something about fact checking, and if you have skills related to the time management, then it's easier for you to have a balance in between these two extremes, meaning fun and meaning. We need to find out our individual why to get the best out of these social media systems, services, products. And for that, we need to focus on ourselves. And we can talk about the psychological factors affecting these purposes of social media usage. These are generally extroversion, introversion, depression, suicidal tendencies, attachment issues, self identity issues, the need to belong, and perceived social closeness to a certain group or group membership related psychological issues. So let's look at the solutions or how to solve the problematic usage use case scenarios. And the first is actually binge usage. We start with watching one YouTube video, and after after an hour or two, we find ourselves looking and interesting, yet uh, without meaning, a video without meaning. Uh, Probably it's not important for us. It's not important for our careers or for our daily activities or our courses, assignments, etc. But at the end of the session, let's say, we notice this, we feel bad about our behavior, recent behavior, because it was meaningless, and we lost so much time without thinking. That's a binge usage example. So there is this Pomodoro method that's very helpful that we can use against these types of situations. And for that, we need to let's return and look at the summary of the time management literature. What you see here is actually the summary of a whole literature of time management, meaning hundreds of books. Okay, you need to start with uh, your purpose in life, your calling. We are talking about a lifetime of decision. Okay, if you find and define all of these, the four issues, for let's say items, then it's going to be easier for you to do whatever you want with your time. But these are basics, these are infrastructure level things. You need to spend some time to understand all of these and define all of these. After that, it will be perfectly easy for you to follow time management discipline. And after your purpose in life, your calling, which is lifetime issue, comes your objectives, meaning your strategy. It's something yearly. And it requires you to prioritize some of the things in your mind. But you need to always keep your life purpose on your mind. After that comes your goals, which are tactics. And these are weekly, monthly things. And for that, you can use mind mapping, brainstorming, etc. Again, you need to prioritize all of these, your goals. And then comes, at the end of the day, the daily tasks. These are, and these must be tangible, measurable, specific. And again, you need to prioritize all of these. The Pomodoro Technique, this is the book that explains what it is in detail. And Francesco Cirillo is the person who produced this technique. It's actually a kitchen timer used to measure 25-minute intervals. And the name of the technique comes from this first timer used, which was shaped like a tomato. And okay, these are the things that we can try and understand about the technique. Basically, we need to plan, track, record, and process. At the end of the day, we need to visualize everything. Starting the day with planning, and throughout the day, we need to track. At the end of the day, we need to record, compile an archive of daily observations about our daily activities, and then we need to process and visualize what happened throughout this process. And these are the rules of the Pomodoro. We have 25 minutes plus a 5-minute break. That means 30 minutes in total. After every 4 Pomodoros, we need to take a 15 to 30-minute break. And we need to understand this. Pomodoro, meaning 25 plus 5, they are indivisible, meaning there are no half or quarter Pomodoro. If a Pomodoro begins, it has to ring, meaning you don't stop until you finish. You can use a timer, an online timer. For example, you can use Google's own timer by writing timer, 5 minutes, etc. You can see on the search form, use keyword timer 5 minutes. You'll be able to reach that service of Google automatically, or you can use your phone for this purpose. And if a Pomodoro is interrupted definitively, that means it's void. You need to restart the same Pomodoro again. Let's look at this question and try and answer this question ourselves. Basically, what do we consume? Think about the food you consume. Is it mostly vegetables, protein, carbohydrate, or carbohydrates, or snacks? After you give me your answer, you can also think about your information and media diet at the same time. We need to understand how it affects you, your information and media diet, what you watch, what you listen, what you read, and basically what you consume as information. And please tell me, what should you consume? Let's look at these words of a wise man, Steve Jobs. When you are young, when we are young, when we look at the TV or in general media, we can think that there's a conspiracy. Okay, the TV channels, the media in general, they have conspired to dumb us down. But when we get a little older, we realize that that's not true. The channels, the networks, the media organizations, they are in business to give people exactly what they want. That's actually a far more depressing thought, because conspiracy is optimistic, or it was optimistic. We can shoot the bastards, we can have a revolution, but actually the thing is, the channels, the media channels, the organizations themselves, they are really in business to give people what they want. It is the only truth. They are not conspiring, they weren't conspiring. They are there to give people what they want. If people prefer that, then they continue watching, they continue listening, they continue consuming. And there are different research about this. When you look at the data, you see that people, even if they say that this is bad, they continue consuming those types of bad content. Here comes someone else, a manager in Fox News. For 200 years, the newspaper front page dominated public thinking. In the last 20 years, that picture has changed. TV news is watched more often than people read newspapers, than people listen to radio, than people read or gather any other form of communication. The reason: people are lazy. With TV, you just sit, watch, listen. The thinking is done for you. Here comes the book that I would like to talk about, or give a short summary about the book. Clay Johnson, the author of this book, talks about, if we look at the same information that we consume as the food we consume, then we can understand the situation, because we are actually feeding our brain with these information that we consume daily. And there are different things, of course: scientific research, commentary, public data, advice and recommendations, anecdotes, history, etc., etc. These are expected and wanted things, but there were, of course, bias, ideological, professional, experiential issues, all in all of what we consume. There's food journalist and health activist called Michael Pollan, and he recommends this about food, about general diet. We need to eat food, meaning something edible, something not directly coming from a factory, something not processed. And then we need to eat not too much. That means we need to consume what's needed only in terms of the consumption amount. And the last part, we need to consume mostly plants. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. This is as simple as it gets. This is actually a summary of the whole diet literature. And then the author of Information Diet book, Clay Johnson, recommends consume deliberately. He is, of course, referring the information and media. We need to consume deliberately. We need to take in information over affirmation. This last part is very important for us. We can refer to some other bias related, cognitive biases related issues, but I'm not going to get into the details of those cognitive biases, but you can check this term, cognitive biases, and you can understand what he's talking about. Take in information over affirmation. And then here's the latest version of the food pyramid. Now they removed food pyramid out of the literature. They don't refer to that anymore, but they use instead this balanced plate for the balanced diet. This is the ideal situation, basically. In terms of the percentages, you can see what you need to put in your plate, on your plate. So is it possible for us to apply the same thing on the ingredients of media contents? Of course, we can. And when we check the details of that, we see mostly the news, media, TV, etc. They contain partisan rhetoric, plus some expert analysis, but biased, and also advertising. And they cite sources from time to time, but they lack the amount required for us to have a good opinion, informed opinion. So we see historical favoritism, etc., etc. also. This is an example of consumption percentages and types of different categories of media consumption, information consumption of the author's own. And we can understand the situation by looking at the details of these raw information, local and social information, and entertainment related information are the most important things, plus skill development. And then comes this sentence from Thomas Jefferson, and I don't know if you agree with this, but I totally agree. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. So here comes the fake news related fact checking and verification issue. And for that, we need to have the infrastructure, and that's called media literacy. And we have basically 5 concepts and questions related to the media literacy. And here they are. The core concepts are 5, and the key questions are 5. The first one is related to the construction of the media messages, and we need to ask this question: who created this message? And the second one is about the creative language of the media, specific media. They all have their own rules, and we can ask what techniques, what methods, which methods are used to attract my attention, and how is it put together, the media message. The third one is related to the different people's different experiences, meaning they may not see, they may not understand the same media message the way that I understand. And the question is, how might different people understand this message differently from me? The fourth concept is the embedded values and points of view in media messages and organizations. So we need to look at and ask the details of what lifestyles, values, and points of view are represented in or omitted from this message. And then comes the last one, last concept. We need to understand that media are organized to gain profit and or power. And for this concept, we need to ask this question: why was this message sent? And there are details for each of those concepts and questions. We can start by asking the authorship question, purpose question, economics, impact, and response. These are all related to the audience and authorship. And we can continue with the content related questions and techniques related, methods related questions, and interpretations related questions. These are all related to messages and meanings. And we can also talk about the context and credibility related questions. These are all related to the representations and realities. So let's talk about a little bit the fact checking. We need to find out more about the source of a website, let's say. We need to understand the level of truth behind the website itself. Is it something reliable? Is it a reliable source, etc.? So we can use this keyword on Google about the name of the website, and then using minus site and then youtube.com, for example, in this example, minus site and then youtube.com. Here's an example. Once you do that, you receive the about result, and you can check the details of that result from the Google. I'm going to talk about the Google, and it's basically services about the details, fact-checking details now, but you need to understand there are other ways for you to make sure that these are the truth or somehow verify the validity of the message that you receive. If we are talking about an image, then we need to question the background of that image. And we need to check the availability of that image in another website on the web in total search function. We cannot have that directly, but we need to look at search Google for image function. And that way we can reach conclusive information, decisive information about the truth about the image itself. And here is actually a funny example about a shark swimming on the road, flooded road. And then if it is related to a news item, a news report, then we can use news.google.com and locate view full coverage. We can use the keyword itself and then see if they have view full coverage about that keyword. Then here's an example. Once you see a news story, you need to use a keyword that's covering that topic, and then you can reach view full coverage. We are talking about, of course, news.google.com, and they have this functionality of view full coverage, and it's very useful for you to see what different sources say about the same issue. And then comes the fact-checking organizations, different websites. They provide these services to the users and different organizations. And the Google provides all of these under one page. And this is the address of that page. You can use this address and check the details of a specific keyword related news or meme, whatever that information type is. You can fact check and verify that through Google Fact Check Explorer. For example, we all know that garlic is important against coronavirus, right? Once we do this check, we immediately reach this result. And we learn basically it is false. Okay. Then comes the Google Maps Earth or Street View to verify a specific location related information. For that, we can easily reach by searching the specific location and then trying to see the street view or map view of the location. And it's also possible through different search engines. It's also possible to have this type of verification, fact check. Now let's talk about ad blocking and hosts blocking. It's not just related to the advertising, let me tell you that, but it's also about harmful or irrelevant content that we don't want to see. So it's basically a software capability for us, and it's blocking or altering online advertising in a web browser or an application. So this may be done using browser extensions or other methods. Let's see how we can do this. But we need to understand why first. Basically, the ad blocking decreases users' exposure to marketing, which promote the purchase of potentially harmful or unhealthy products and services, and creating the urge to buy immediately. We mentioned the social media, and we mentioned the algorithmic approach they use on their platforms. That's why we need to have these ad blocking technologies always on our systems. So we need to use these technologies to protect our privacy, save our bandwidth, and by extension, of course, our money, and to have a better user experience, meaning less cluttered pages, fewer distractions. We need to use these technologies also to save battery on our mobile devices and laptops. And this is one example only, but this is among the other blockers, this is the best so far, according to the, of course, research. And we can install this on our browser, uBlock Origin extension, and immediately see the effects. Or we can use other specific software, install them, and use them. Among them, these three are the best. The NetNanny content control software, especially for parents to monitor and control the children. Privoxy, again, a similar product, free non-caching web proxy with filtering capabilities. And then Squid, again, caching and forwarding HTTP web proxy. These are all good software for this purpose of ad blocking or general web content blocking. Then comes this method, which is maybe the simplest of all of these extension and software usage. And in terms of resources of your computer, meaning CPU and RAM, etc., this is by far the best option because it is almost automatic and without using any extra processor or RAM resource. You can download a specific text file and basically copy and paste the contents of that into your host file. That will solve the issue. It is a simple text file in your operating system, which is available now. It comes automatically with the operating system. And once you find the source to edit using, for example, this specific web page, I suggest, once you reach this web page, you'll be able to copy whole of the text. We are talking about at least 68,000 lines of information. Okay. All of these actually are web pages, web servers that serve advertising or harmful, irrelevant content. And once you copy and paste this text into your host file, it automatically blocks all of these without any extra software or extension. And this is going to be the last thing we are going to talk about tonight. This is a recent documentary. I suggest you to watch this documentary. If you are a parent, especially if you are a parent, you need to understand the situation right now, how the social media is affecting the children mindset and psychology and their behavior, and what are some of the most important problems that we need to focus on the usage behavior of the children and why they are like this, why they are addicted to social media, why they are always trying to use their devices, etc., etc. This is a good documentary, but for parents, I suggest them to watch this first before sharing the information with their children. And if you see fit, you can re-watch the documentary together with your children if they are old enough, if they can understand, if they are going to be able to understand the issues and make a pact, for example. So these are the references, and I suggest you to check, especially the books. I can give this information about them. You can check Book Africa, book.africa website, like I wrote here. You can check the exact website and search and find the book and read, or the books and read. And the documentaries are basically available online on YouTube or Netflix, and other resources are also available. If you have any questions, you can ask now, or let me just check the chat screen if you have any questions. I believe you don't have a question right now, and that's okay. You can always reach me through my email address, and I'll be answering your questions whenever you ask them, because that's my job actually. I'm a lecturer, so I would like to help people about these types of things. So thank you again for your attendance and attention so far, and I would like to see you next time we have another webinar about media, information, and users, etc. So thank you again, and have a nice evening or day whenever you are watching this recorded version of this. Thank you.